Welcome students to a session on consequences of hydrogen bonding. In this session, I wish to consolidate all the facts regarding the effects of hydrogen bonding on the properties of molecules which occur in different units of your chemistry textbooks for classes 11 and 12. All of you are familiar with hydrogen bonding, isn't it? You also know that the two OH bonds in water molecule are polar covalent. Due to a large difference in the electronegativities of the oxygen and hydrogen atoms, you have a partial negative charge on the oxygen atom and partial positive charges on the hydrogen atoms. There is a negative oxygen in the neighborhood. So, this positive hydrogen of one molecule forms a weak bond with a negative oxygen of another molecule in proximity. Such a bond, which results between the positive hydrogen of one molecule and the negative atom of another molecule of the same kind in the neighborhood, is called hydrogen bond. So, this is hydrogen bond. The other atoms with which hydrogen can form such bonds are nitrogen and fluorine. In fact, nitrogen, oxygen and fluorine are the only three atoms which can form hydrogen bonds in their molecules. That's because only these three atoms have sufficient electronegativity to cause hydrogen bonding. Now, this hydrogen bond is not a regular bond. It is much weaker than a covalent bond, but it is stronger than all types of intermolecular forces like van der Waals forces, dipole attraction, like all types of intermolecular forces. If you consider, hydrogen bonds are stronger than all these. Hydrogen bonds actually cause two important properties in the compounds in which it present. I am going to first mention two general properties before taking up special cases. One is, all the compounds in which hydrogen bonds are present, they exist in liquid state. Ice is an exception. To form hydrogen bonds, the molecules have to be close by, isn't it? So, for them to be in proximity, the compounds have to be in the liquid state. Only when you have more number of molecules per unit volume, they will be sufficiently close so that hydrogen bonds can be formed. That is the reason why these compounds in which hydrogen bonding is present are liquids. Secondly, these liquids have high boiling points. That is, their boiling points are higher than comparable liquids in which there is no hydrogen bonding. When you want to convert a liquid to a vapor, you supply heat to break all the intermolecular forces, isn't it? So that the liquid molecules gain freedom of movement and get converted into vapor. Now, when a liquid has hydrogen bonding in it, in addition to all the intermolecular forces, you have to break the hydrogen bonds present, isn't it? So, you have to supply more heat. That explains why these liquids have high boiling points. Next thing is, we have to discuss the effect of hydrogen bond on properties of molecules, all types of molecules, in fact, inorganic, organic and biomolecules. The first one to be taken up are inorganic molecules. So, I will take up inorganic molecules for discussion now. We are going to see what are the properties that are affected by hydrogen bond. Now, when you take up group 15 elements, let me first write the elements: nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony and bismuth. What are their hydrides? Ammonia, phosphine, arsine, stibine and bismuthine. All these are gases. Now you know that ammonia is the only compound in which hydrogen bond is possible. Because of that, ammonia is highly condensable, very easily liquefiable gas. Not only that, it dissolves readily in water. It can form hydrogen bonds with water, so it readily dissolves in water to form ammonium hydroxide, which is a very useful chemical for us in the laboratory. As I said, ammonia is easily liquefiable. That is the reason why it was used as a refrigerant for a very long time. Before these modern refrigerants are they have come into use. These are very sophisticated ones which we use now. Earlier we were having only ammonia as the refrigerant because of its easily liquefiable nature. Group 16 hydrates are H2O, H2S, H2Se, H2Te and H2PO. What is the physical state of all these? These are all gases. Water is the only liquid. In fact, you might have had this reasoning question sometime. Among the elements of group 16, water is the only liquid while the rest are gases. The reason is the presence of hydrogen bonding in water. Not only that, the presence of hydrogen bond in water has imparted some very special characteristics to water to make it an ideal biological fluid to support life on the planet. Shall we make a list of the special properties of water which are caused by hydrogen bonding? First one, high boiling point. You know, water remains as a liquid over a long range of temperature from 0 to 100 degrees. It's a pretty long range over which it remains as a liquid and which is very convenient to us. Secondly, its high dissolving power. It is a good solvent not only for ionic compounds but also for covalent compounds like sugar, glucose and many more. Thirdly, it has high specific heat. Fourth one, shall we say high surface tension. All these are very useful properties if you think about them. High heat capacity. I would mention one thing about this heat capacity. Because of the high heat capacity of water, oceans can hold 10 times the heat that the atmosphere can. This helps in preserving the climate of the planet. That is one important application of the high heat capacity. In fact, I would say water is a liquid which is totally taken for granted. If you spend some time thinking about the properties of water, you would realize what an amazing liquid it is. I already mentioned that ice is the only solid which has hydrogen bonding in it. Let us try to understand that. In the liquid form of water, hydrogen bond does exist, but the molecules have freedom of movement. So as they keep moving, the bonds also are being formed and broken, again formed. In fact, hydrogen bonds do not exist in the entire liquid of water. Water exists as clusters with hydrogen bonds between a group of molecules there. But as you lower the temperature, what happens? These molecules slowly lose their freedom of movement, and nearing the freezing point of water, what happens is each molecule, water molecule, which is not moving now, forms bonds with all the neighboring molecules and forms a definite geometric shape. In such a case, to form hydrogen bonds and to form a geometric shape, they have to be at a certain distance. And at this point, you have ice has less number of molecules per unit volume than liquid water. That is why the density of ice is less than that of water. For many liquids, their solid forms have higher density than the liquid forms. This fact that ice has lower density than water also has a very important application. If you see there, you know, in polar regions, the top layers of the water bodies freeze during severe winter, isn't it? Supposing ice were to be lighter than, heavier than liquid water and were to sink, what will happen? It will expose fresh layers of water which will freeze, and this will continue till the entire water body freezes. Is it good for the aquatic life there? No. So this property of ice floating on water in the water bodies in polar regions during winter, now you realize how useful it is for the aquatic life there. Not only that, ice is a bad conductor of heat, so it prevents the water underneath that from freezing. So this is just for a few facts I am mentioning here about the properties of water and how it supports life because of its peculiar characteristics, which are made possible due to the presence of hydrogen bonding in them. The next thing that I have to take up is the elements of groups 17. You have fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and their hydrates are HF, HCl, HBr and HI. Here again, HF is a liquid at a temperature when all these are gases. This is a liquid. Here what we are going to see is not a mere physical property but a chemical property, that is the acidic nature. You know, all these are good acids and strong acids too. But HF has hydrogen bonding in it because of its high electronegativity of fluorine. So we have delta negative fluorine there and a HF in the neighborhood which has a positive hydrogen, and you have a weak hydrogen bond between them. Now let us try to understand what is acidity. What do we why do we say a particular compound is acidic? Because of the ease with which it can give away its hydrogen atoms as protons in solution, isn't it? This HCl can readily supply protons in solution by breaking its bond with between the hydrogen and chlorine. Now if you take this to make the hydrogen atoms available as protons, you have to break not only this HF bond but also this hydrogen bond. Remember, between HF molecules you have so many hydrogen bonds, so the number of protons available for exhibiting acidic nature will be definitely less than what is available in the same volume of same molarity of HCl. If you take HF and HCl solutions of same molarity, the hydrogen ion concentration in HF will be less than that of HCl. That is what means that HF is a weaker acid than HCl. So the question here would be, give reason why HF is weaker than HCl, or compare the acidic nature of fluorine, hydrogen fluoride and hydrogen chloride, stating a reason. Is that clear? So this is the consequence of hydrogen bond among the hydrates of group 17 elements. How does hydrogen bond affect the properties of organic molecules? That's what is to be seen now. You know, organic molecules are generally non-polar in nature, and so they are characterized by low melting and boiling points and are expected to be insoluble in water. But there are quite a few organic molecules in which hydrogen bonds are present, and you can see a major shift in the physical properties of these compounds. I am going to take up a set of organic compounds each containing 3 carbon atoms but a different functional group. Propane, chloropropane, methoxyethane, then propanol, propanal, propanoic acid and propanamine. If I ask you to arrange these compounds in the increasing order of their boiling points without actually measuring them, how will you be able to do that? You need a knowledge of the types of forces that are existing between the molecules of these compounds. So based on that, let us try to do it now. Propane, we know, is totally non-polar because it has only CH bonds. So it is characterized by very low melting and boiling point. We are seeing boiling points now, low boiling point and insoluble. In chloropropane, other than the CH and CC bonds, you have a CCl bond. A CCl bond which is polarizable due to the difference in the electronegativities of carbon and chlorine. This is slightly polarizable. You have some charge creation on the carbon and chlorine atoms. This will give rise to dipole-dipole attraction between the molecules. Hence, you expect it to be having slightly higher boiling point than that of propane, but still it has low boiling point. I will write low boiling point. Propane is a gas at room temperature while chloropropane is a liquid. So that is the difference, but this is also having low boiling point. And the polarity of a CCl bond is not enough to form hydrogen bonds with water. Hence, it is insoluble. For boiling point, you have to compare the forces between the molecules of the same kind, and for solubility, you have to see whether it can form hydrogen bonds with water molecules. That's what we have to consider here. Now this is methoxyethane. You have CC bond, CH bonds, and this is COC bond, which is again non-polar. But remember, this oxygen has 2 lone pairs of electrons on it. And in between ether molecules, there are not much attractive forces except van der Waals forces. So this is also non-polar. It has low boiling point. In fact, ether is a highly volatile liquid. Leave some ether on a watch glass, and after some time you can see that the liquid has gone to the vaporized. It has very low boiling point. But the lone pair of electrons of oxygen are attracted to the positive hydrogen of water. Due to that factor, this is soluble in water. Remember, it is not hydrogen bond between oxygen and hydrogen because this is not a negative oxygen. It is only the lone pair of electrons of the oxygen which are attracted to the positive hydrogen of water. So due to that attraction, it get into the water molecule and it becomes soluble. In alcohol, you have a OH bond, the typical OH bond which is responsible for hydrogen bonding. In between the alcohol molecules also you have intermolecular hydrogen bonding. Hence, you can expect it to have high boiling point, and it can also form hydrogen bonds with water. It is soluble. Next is the aldehyde, which has a C double bond O. C double bond O is again polarizable due to the pi bond here. C single bond is O is not polarizable, whereas C double bond O is polarizable. You have a slightly negative oxygen and a positive carbon. if you compare this polarizability with the CCl polarizability, the C double bond O polarizability is higher than that of CCl. Hence, you have greater dipole-dipole attraction in between the molecules. This may have higher boiling point than that of the alkyl halide, but still I am going to write here low boiling point, because I have written only high for only for the alcohol. This is a low boiling point. And then due to the negative oxygen, it can form hydrogen bonds with water. It is soluble in water. In the acid, you have a C double bond O and a OH bond. OH bond is the typical one which is responsible for hydrogen bonding, and just now we saw C double bond O is a polarizable one, forming charges on carbon and oxygen. Due to the presence of two polar groups here, this is having higher boiling point. When I say higher, I mean higher than that of alcohol and more soluble. And amine has one NH bond. Nitrogen has lower electronegativity than that of oxygen, hence the extent of hydrogen bonding in the amine should be less than that of alcohol. So this is comparable with the alcohol. It has high boiling point due to the hydrogen bonding, but whether it is higher or lower, that is what we have to see. Then it is soluble in water. Now our job is to arrange them in the increasing order of boiling points. So for increasing order we have to start with the one having the lowest boiling point. No doubt it is propane having the lowest boiling point. Then comes which one? It's the ether or the alkyl halide. Alkyl halide, at least you have a CCl bond. In ether nothing is present, it is non-polar again. So we will write ether here. This is propane, ether, CH3O, CH2, CH3. So propane, methoxyethane. Then comes the alkyl halide, I can say, because the other things to be compared with alkyl halide are the aldehyde, only aldehyde. So comparing these two, we know that in alkyl halide the CCl bond is less polar than the C double bond O. So the next one is alkyl halide. Then comes the aldehyde. And we compared the amine and the alcohol. We know amine has hydrogen bonds to a lesser extent than that of alcohol. So amines, then I would write alcohol. The last one being acid. You must remember to write the correct sign between the compounds when we are arranging them in increasing order. I have seen students writing the correct order but putting the wrong symbol between them. So write less than symbol when you arrange them in the increasing order, or you can simply put a comma there. Shall we arrange them in the increasing order of solubility now? Increasing order of solubility. The lowest is propane. It is less soluble than, we can say, alkyl halide. The previous one, for the boiling points we wrote ether, but ether we saw is more soluble than alkyl halide due to its lone pair of electrons. So slightly the order is changed here. You have the alkyl halide, then have the ether, then you have the aldehyde, then amine, alcohol, finally the acid. Here it is based on the fact that the molecule should be able to form hydrogen bonds with water to be soluble in water. So based on the understanding of hydrogen bond, we could arrange the given set of molecules in the order of increasing boiling point or increasing solubility. Now I want you to write the structures of the three isomers of nitrophenol: orthonitrophenol, metanitrophenol, paranitrophenol. It has one OH bond and one NO2 group. This is what you have. This is how you have to draw the structure. This is orthonitrophenol. In metanitrophenol, this is nitro group is little away. And this is paranitrophenol. Now this OH group is polarizable. You can have positive hydrogen and negative oxygen. Similarly, the N double bond O also is polarizable, where you can have negative oxygen and positive nitrogen because of the pi bond. You are able to see that the positive hydrogen and the negative oxygen of the NO2 group here, they are quite close by, isn't it? In orthonitrophenol, they are quite close by, that is close enough to form in hydrogen bonding. So you have intramolecular hydrogen bonding in this isomer. In this ortho isomer, you have the intramolecular hydrogen bonding. In meta and para isomers, though the same two polarizable groups are present, they are not close enough to form hydrogen bonds within the molecules, but they do form hydrogen bonds in between molecules. Between two meta-nitrophenols and two para-nitrophenols, you find hydrogen bonding. So here you find intermolecular hydrogen bonding, and here it is intramolecular. This is ortho and this is meta and this is para. And which one will give rise to increased boiling point? Intramolecular or intermolecular hydrogen bonding? Think about it. See, to evaporate a liquid, you have to give heat to break the intermolecular forces we saw. And when hydrogen bonds are present between the molecules, those molecules need extra temperature to vaporize, isn't it? We have already considered that. So in the case of intermolecular hydrogen bonds, you need to give higher temperature to break the intermolecular hydrogen bonds present in addition to the other intermolecular forces. While in this compound, in orthonitrophenol, hydrogen bond is formed within the molecules. So in between two orthonitrophenols, you don't have hydrogen bond, hence it doesn't need any extra temperature due to that. So obviously intramolecular hydrogen bond does not cause an increased boiling point, whereas intermolecular hydrogen bonds cause increase in boiling point. When you treat phenol with dilute nitric acid, it forms orthonitrophenol and paranitrophenol. Both compounds are formed. So it becomes necessary to separate them, orthonitrophenol and paranitrophenol. When these are formed together, we have to find a method of separating them. Now hydrogen bond only comes to our help. we just now saw that intramolecular hydrogen bonding is present in orthonitrophenol and intermolecular hydrogen bonding is present in paranitrophenol. So naturally this would have higher boiling point than this. Here we use the concept of steam distillation. You might have studied that with regard to methods of purification of organic compounds. Steam distillation is a process of passing steam through a liquid when the boiling point of a liquid is low enough that it can be boiled by just passing steam through that. The liquid will vaporize and pass along with the steam through a condenser to be collected, but it should be insoluble in water, so you can separate the two liquids by separating funnel. That is steam distillation. And when we pass steam through a mixture of these two which are formed, these two are otherwise very similar, so you cannot find methods of separating them. So when you pass steam through a mixture containing orthonitrophenol and paranitrophenol, orthonitrophenol will vaporize along with steam and pass through the condenser to the receiver to be collected, and then you can separate it from water by using separating funnel, and paranitrophenol will remain in the vessel itself. It will not be it will not be vaporized by passing steam. You cannot vaporize it because its boiling point is higher, so it will be left behind in the flask. Is that clear? So that is a way of separating the two, where for the separation purpose we have adopted steam distillation method, which has been made possible due to the property introduced by the presence of intramolecular hydrogen bonding in orthonitrophenol. Is that clear to you? So here you see the application of hydrogen bonding in actual separation between the two isomers. Is that clear? You come across another interesting application of hydrogen bonding in the determination of molecular mass by colligative property measurement. When you take a solution of ethanoic acid in benzene and determine the molecular mass of ethanoic acid by a colligative property measurement, you should be expecting a value of 60 for ethanoic acid. But what you get is actually almost double of that. I will explain the reason. See, in ethanoic acid molecule, you have a OH bond and a C double bond O. There is another molecule in the neighborhood, and you find two hydrogen bonds actually between the OH group of one molecule and the C double bond O of the other molecule, and the C double bond O of the first molecule and the OH of the second molecule, as it is shown in the figure. So two molecules together exist as a single unit called dimer. If we assume that there are n molecules of ethanoic acid, unassociated molecules in benzene, due to this dimer formation, you have almost half of them, that is nearly n by 2. Don't think that every molecule is associated. They are almost associated, so we can say the number of molecules is almost close to n by 2. And you know that colligative property is directly proportional to the number of particles. Number of particles. These particles could be ions, molecules, or dimers like this, whatever it is. Each is counted as one particle. So when the number of particles is reduced to almost half, the colligative property measured also becomes almost half. And this colligative property is, is inversely proportional to molecular mass. That is, it is proportional to 1 by m molecular mass. So when the number of particles is reduced to half, colligative property becomes almost half, molecular mass becomes double. That is why you get a value which is almost close to 120 for ethanoic acid. Do you think ethanoic acid in water will undergo association? Can you find out an answer? It will not undergo association. In fact, it undergoes dissociation, and in that case also you will get an abnormal value, but I am not going into the details of those things. I only want to highlight the role of hydrogen bonds in the formation of dimer in the case of acetic acid in benzene, and giving you an abnormal molecular mass. So that is what we have discussed here, and I suppose this is clear to you, and you must have come across this in your study of solutions in another unit. Now we will pass on to the role of hydrogen bonds in biomolecules. In the case of biomolecules, hydrogen bonds play an important role in their structures, and the structures are very crucial for the functions of these biomolecules. You know, proteins are polymers of amino acids, and amino acids have one NH2 group and one COOH group in each molecule. In between two amino acids, you know, the the COOH group of one amino acid condenses with NH2 group of another amino acid, and then a molecule of water is eliminated and you get a CONH bond. This is said to be a peptide bond. Since there are number of amino acids along the chain of the protein molecule, you also find an equal number of peptide bonds along the chain of the amino acids. The sequence of amino acids in a protein chain is said to be its primary structure. Now this chain exists as a coil in the protein molecule. Now that is said to be having an alpha helical form. This is said to be the alpha helical form, which is called its secondary structure. Now I'll show you this way. See, this is the CO and NH groups along the chain of the protein molecule, and this oxygen is partially negative and this hydrogen is partially positive, and between these two there is a hydrogen bond. You visualize this above the chain of the amino acid, and so this chain or coil is kept in position. The alpha helical form is kept in position, the coils are kept in position due to a large number of hydrogen bonds along the chain of the protein molecule. I suppose it is clear to you. There is another form of secondary structure which is said to be the beta pleated form, as you see in the second figure. In this, the two chains of amino acids are lying side by side, and you see the hydrogen bonds between the C double bond O of one chain and the NH of the other chain. So here also the chains are kept in position only due to hydrogen bonds. So you have seen the case of proteins. Another interesting molecule where you find the role of hydrogen bonds are the DNA molecules. You know, DNA molecules are double stranded and the two strands are complementary to each other. The base pairing is very specific among the DNA strands. See, the adenine is bonded to thymine of the other strand, and guanine of this strand is bonded to cytosine of the other strand. You find two hydrogen bonds between adenine and thymine, and three hydrogen bonds between guanine and cytosine. So I am not going into more details here. I am only trying to say that hydrogen bonds play a role in the structures of the biomolecules, which are very crucial for their functions. In the case of inorganic and organic molecules, hydrogen bonds affect their physical properties, and in biomolecules it is playing a part in the structures. Now I am concluding the session with an assignment. In this assignment you see 4 questions. The answers for all these questions I have explained in my session. I would like to mention only one thing. In the 4th question I have given you a molecule glycerol, that is glycerol having 3 OH groups. You must only think that greater the number of OH groups, to that extent the property, whatever property you are considering, will also be influenced by the hydrogen bonds. That is what I would like to mention as a guidance for your answer for the 4th question. You can otherwise find the answers, or you should be able to by now answer all these questions from if you have listened to the session. Thank you.